What's up, guys? So, over the last 28 days, we just traveled all around the American West. We went from starting in Colorado, we went to Wyoming, Montana, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, shortly, Utah, back to Colorado. And we're going to share with you all the things that we learned, all of our recommendations for the best things in all those places and maybe some of the worst, and just talk about how we did it. And hopefully you guys will be able to get something out of our recommendations and our rankings and that kind of stuff. So let's dive in.
Do it.
I just kind of told you about where we went. The whole trip was 28 days long. And we're going to start off by ranking the national parks that we went to. So
to start, just to list off the ones that we hit.
Yeah.
In order, it would have been, we stopped in Grand Tetons first, then we went to Yosemite.
Nope. We went Grand Tetons, then we went to Yellowstone.
That's right.
Then we went to Glacier.
Yep.
Then we went to Yosemite.
Yeah.
Then Zion, and then Bryce Canyon. There's 7 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
the Redwoods as well.
Kind of more.
And we'll talk about that. So, let's just dive into the park rankings. This is kind of a shared ranking, but we're gonna kind of talk it through. So why don't you present the facts? Let's start with worst to best.
All right, worst to best. Worst. I guess take this with a grain of salt because we didn't really actually dive into this one. This was more of one we passed through. So I'm sure if we gave it a full, day or two to really explore, it probably would have been awesome. But we had Redwoods as our bottom. We saw a lot of the coastal redwoods and the sequoias, and they're stunning and beautiful. I just don't know if it can hold a candle to some of the mountains and the other stuff we saw at the other parks.
Yeah, definitely very cool. Cool how it was on the coast and beautiful trees. But I think our lack of immersion in that park specifically, we just kind of drove through and maybe got out at like one spot. That's what puts it at the bottom. So let's go to the next one.
All right, then this would be
6.
Number 6. I have Zion National Park in Utah. I thought Zion was really, really gorgeous, stunning. Like the red rocks were beautiful. Nothing bad to say about how pretty it looked. I did just feel like of all the parks, it felt the most touristy to me. Granted, we did a couple hikes and some stops that were like obviously catered towards tourists, so that's naturally going to happen. But it felt the most packed, with just people everywhere. And yeah, I don't know. I just had a little more fun at the other parks, I would say.
A lot of people, and this one's a little bit of a heartbreaker for me because I really, really liked Zion. I'm a huge appreciator of the colors of the rocks, the reds, and just the vastness of the park. I thought it was really cool. I also liked how it had water in it. And originally I had it above Bryce Canyon, and we'll talk about later why Bryce kind of surpassed Zion for us, but I would totally go back to Zion, and I liked the park a lot. This one's hard to put down there, but it's just it's hard to compete with the other parks that we went to, I think, is the moral of the story.
Yeah, and I would say with a lot of these, we're really splitting hairs here. Like, these were all really enjoyable in their own right, and I would go back to most of these in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But you got to rank. You got to do what you got to do.
And Angel's Landing hike was super fun in Zion too.
Angel's Landing was sick.
That was one of the top hikes, I think. But okay, let's go to number 5.
So number 5 and 4 could be swapped on any given day, but the lean for 5 is Yosemite for me, with 4 then being Yellowstone. And those were really close, so it's kind of like 4A, 4B type thing.
Yeah. With Yosemite, I think that also competes with Zion for like touristy, having a lot of people there. But Yosemite, I think, is higher in our rankings partly because we got super immersed in Yosemite by doing Half Dome, and we, had a great time on that hike. It was super challenging and really tested the spirits, and felt like a big accomplishment once we got done with that, which I think kind of endeared us to the park.
For sure.
But Yosemite has really cool bodies of water that you can swim in. It's got cool waterfalls. It has, really cool rock formations and a bunch of different kinds of hikes that you can do where you're going to be able to see different angles
awesome.
of the park.
Maybe the best hike options of any of the parks.
Potentially.
It's hard to say because we didn't hike every fucking thing at every park, but
yeah,
Yosemite, Half Dome was definitely the highlight.
Yeah, Yosemite was awesome. So, next we have Yellowstone, which Yellowstone, I think, just from a wildlife standpoint is completely unmatched.
Yeah.
Yellowstone is as big as like 2 states. So the entire park is as big as New Hampshire and Vermont put together. And so it takes a long time to drive across it. And what that means is that you can get a lot of different kinds of wildlife and biomes and nature there. So we saw things like really cool, colorful basins that are kind of like hot springs. You can see geysers there, but you can also see just beautiful Great Plains that kind of remind you of what the U.S. probably used to look like.
Just
the middle of the country.
As you're driving through it, you'll see, it's super dense wooded forests, and then all of a sudden you drive a couple more hours, and then like Jack was saying, all of a sudden it opens up to these beautiful plains with herds of buffalo in it.
Yeah.
And just endless things to do there.
Endless things to do, and just pristine. Like, it just felt the most pristine, I think.
Yeah, well, I think
nature.
It's so big, it really did feel like, it didn't feel, it's touristy in the sense that a lot of the main attractions are super accessible to tourists. Like, you don't have to hike far to see these basins or anything. But on the other side of that coin, it's just so big, you don't even feel like you're in a park sometimes. You feel like you're just driving through this body of land that really is pretty untouched by humans. It is literally what it felt like to me. But
And I think one of the things that really speaks to how pristine it actually is like the lake that we hiked to. So we did backcountry camping in Yellowstone, which was awesome. That was a fantastic experience. But we were able to drink water out of a lake in Yellowstone too, which was like all we had to do was boil it, and I think that kind of speaks to just how pristine the nature is. It was just really awesome. We saw other people doing like canoe camping and stuff, where they would go out on the different like kayaks or whatever. And in some of those lakes in Yellowstone, they can get waves that are up to like 4 feet because it's just so big, those lakes. So really cool. Loved Yellowstone. But from a visual, I think the reason why it's a little bit lower on this list is because from a visually shocking standpoint, it does not hold a candle to the top 3.
Yeah,
would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
So with that, why don't we move on to number 3?
Okay, so then number 3, and again, this is kind of like the Yellowstone Yosemite thing. 2 and 3 are pretty interchangeable too, depending on the day. It's really splitting hairs here.
Start with 3.
3, I had Grand Tetons, and then right above that.
Wait. Before we go to that, because then when we reveal 2, that reveals 1 too.
Okay, fair. All right.
So let's talk about Tetons.
3 was the Grand Tetons. That was our first stop. In terms of just like visual strikingness, it was incredible. Like, it was shocking how beautiful it was. The 2 lakes that we stopped by, String Lake, we hung out at for pretty much, felt like a whole day after some hikes. And then Jenny Lake too. I thought those are both gorgeous, and that was like a huge, highlight of the park for me. Yeah, I guess when I look back at Tetons, just the strikingness of it is what stood out to me, and just how stunning it was.
Yeah, we pull up, and it was just such a crazy way to start this trip, because we pull up to Jackson, and we kind of do our stuff in town, get ready to go to our campsite, get a recommendation for a campsite that we're going to talk about later on in the video. But we kind of pull around this corner, and we start seeing the Tetons from a distance, and it was just like, wow, like incredible, shockingly gorgeous. And you just, like, hard to describe. Like, you kind of have to be there to feel it, because it's that powerful. And like he said, the lakes, like String Lake, for example, I think is the most beautiful lake I've ever seen in my life, and that's in Grand Tetons. And one thing I liked, it was like lush mountains, had great wildlife too. We ran into a bear on the trail there. That was like day 2 of the trip. We saw a bunch of different kinds of like plants, and it's got great waterfalls too, that we saw. Very pristine feeling, very just shockingly, stunningly gorgeous. And the only reason why I think it is number 3 as opposed to 1 or 2, even though it vies for that number 2 spot, like what Luke was saying, is that it felt a little bit less immersive than some of the other parks. And that kind of, what we mean by that is that the Tetons, you're just kind of, there are some hikes that you can do where you kind of go into the Tetons a little bit, but they're pretty long. They're like a 19-mile loop or something like that. And it kind of felt like a park where, like, you see this shockingly gorgeous landscape, and then you're kind of looking at the same landscape almost most of the time that you're in the park, from like some different angles. But with the other 2 parks that are at the top of our list, you kind of walk through and you see different things while you're in them. And I think that's kind of, but other than that, I mean, it could have been the most shockingly gorgeous park. Like, it vies for that. So
yeah, it was stunning.
Okay, let's go to number 2.
Moving on. We have our number 2, which was just barely ahead of Tetons. Like we said, on any given day, I could be swayed either way on these 2.
Even the top 3 could kind of be interchangeable to some extent.
Yeah, I agree with that. But with the slight lean at 2 over Tetons, we had Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah. And the main reason for me is Bryce was just so stunning and felt so unique and otherworldly to me in terms of the biome, and the rock structures were just insane. I remember the first hike we did was kind of through the amphitheater area, if I remember correctly. And I remember just walking through, and you have so many of these just completely unique, weirdly shaped rock structures that almost look like, nature's sculptures of just like, artwork. And like, you're walking through, and there's just hundreds of them you can see. And I feel like I could have walked through that for hours and hours and just been mind blown the entire time.
Yeah.
Staring at all these rock structures. The colors were incredible. Yeah, I mean, the stargazing was also second to none at Bryce Canyon at night. That was really fucking awesome for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when we first got to Bryce, I still kind of had Zion above it even, because I thought Zion was, I really, really like very deep red rock colors, and I thought Zion was more vast, and I appreciated how it had water, unlike Bryce at this time of year. But the more time we spent in Bryce, the more I realized, like, not only is it the most other planetary looking place that maybe I've ever been, it looked like just a completely different planet, which was really, really cool. But it also had a lot to offer from like a colors standpoint. So I remember we're walking, and like where we did some backcountry camping, we had really beautiful and vibrant like greens from so much different like plant diversity there. There's just a bunch of different kinds of plants, which was really, really cool to see. But also the rocks themselves had different pastels of like off whites and pinks and yellows, golds, purples even. And that was really, really cool to kind of admire the more that we got immersed in the park and the more time that we spent in there. So, yeah, that was really, really cool. And like almost everything you touch, like you can touch a tree or you can touch rocks and it'll kind of like leave like a chalky kind of colorful residue on your fingers from that. So it's like just feels really, really cool. Hard to explain, but yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful place, and one of my favorite spots on the whole trip we discovered there, which we'll talk about later in the video.
Yeah, and just not to go too in depth on that, but it was some of the maybe the best sunsets that we saw, because like Jack was saying about all these crazy different pastel red colors and all this stuff. As the sun's setting like over the amphitheater, you can just see the sun line like change these rock colors, and that was just stunning to see. And then like I said, with the stargazing, going straight from like this gorgeous sunset, straight into the sun going down, and all of a sudden now all these just like fantastical stars are coming out. It was a really awesome,
the stargazing,
really awesome experience.
Also puts it up there for me too. That was something I was really looking forward to, and it is really good out there.
Yeah. And some of a lot of this is just our own personal experience. I think maybe you'd have different experiences depending on the time of year you go, and different factors. But Bryce felt pretty empty, weirdly. It felt very not touristy, which kind of shocked me, especially coming from Zion in the same state of Utah. It was like night and day to me. Like Zion felt, super populated, super densely packed groups of people on these hikes and trails. And then Bryce, we camped in the park and we pulled in, and there was like the whole loop of this main, camping ring was like empty.
Mostly empty,
and, the hikes were like, obviously there's people out there, but like you felt like not surrounded by that many people. When we did the back country camping near the Swamp Canyon, we were the only ones out there.
The entire day.
That was awesome. So like
the entire day and night, we didn't see a single soul out there, and that blew my mind. I'm glad you brought that up because that was incredible. I mean, that was one of the most amazing spots that we saw on the entire trip, and we didn't even have to share it with a single soul.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll add this too, because this is also another reason why I love Bryce so much, is I thought the weather was perfect. Like we're in the dead end of summer here, where obviously it's just heat waves across the country, and Zion was pretty hot. We're coming from the desert and we're just like dying from the heat basically for like 4 days straight, and getting to Bryce and the highs being like 69, 70 was just like perfect.
Yeah. Like
going on a hike through this like beautiful desert, and like it's just like a nice 68 with a breeze. It was just like,
that's a really good
fucking
point.
Heaven. Like perfect.
And we were seeing wildlife there too. We saw, different deer there. We saw a bunch of lizards. We saw, there are rattlesnakes out there, which I'm glad we did not see. But, there's wildlife out there too. It's really, a bunch of birds.
Yeah, a lot of like really big, cool crows.
Yeah.
That were like, really beautiful to see at sunset as they're kind of swarming and flying through the canyons. And, Bryce was just almost perfect to me.
All right, time for the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
Which is tough, but also not that tough, because I think it really deserves this number 1 spot.
Yeah. Number 1, as much as we loved Bryce and Tetons, number 1 was Glacier National Park. It was just kind of feels like it's in a league of its own for me. Just absolutely breathtaking views. And the main hike we did, was it the Skyline hike? Highline hike. Just the whole time. I mean, a lot of hikes you go on, you're maybe like going through forests, and then you're coming out every once in a while to some openings, and then you're able to like look and see a view or whatever. The entire hike, you're just on the edge of, the mountains, kind of and you're just staring out, you know, the entire 5 hours you're out there. It's just stunning the entire time. Like just the greenest like mountains and hills you've ever seen, like brushing up against all of a sudden like, you know, beautiful like almost purple rock face. Like you get to the top of the Highline hike and you're staring down at this just stunning glacier that's like, you know, however the fuck high up we were. Just the views were unmatched in my opinion.
Yeah,
just unmatched.
I remember we woke up that morning that we did the Highline hike and we're driving, like the sun, we got up early enough to see the sunrise because it's a long hike. And like the sunrise was so gorgeous coming
So
into
pretty.
this valley where there's lakes there. So we drove by this lake and we're like driving on the Going to the Sun road, which is a really famous road because of how gorgeous it is.
Which is another awesome feature of the park.
Yeah, and we're seeing different wildlife on the way, like deer and elk, I think. And then you get to this Highline hike, and you almost as soon as you start, like you turn the corner, and there's just this shot straight down the valley that's been carved out by this glacier, and it's just the most lush, beautiful mountains, and it's just like jaw on the ground.
Yeah, from your first, like Jack was saying, like the first 10 minutes into the hike, you're like,
yeah,
this already is maybe the pretty. Yeah, Jack's phone keeps overheating, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick up where he left off with Glacier. But
yeah,
basically, what we were saying is that hike we did. You step out, and like Jack was saying, in the first 10 minutes, this is like your first major view you see, and it's just the prettiest thing you've ever seen in your life. And then there's just 5 more hours of just looking at it, and as you go, you kind of start seeing more of the valley and more of these mountains, and everyone looks unique.
I think what's different about it than Tetons too is like at multiple points in that hike, you're getting completely different views of the valley. Whereas like Tetons we talked about, you're kind of looking at one thing most of the time. But this, you're just getting completely different angles on really, really cool stuff. And also like the glacier itself is an amazing kind of lookout point to go up to. Looking down into where the glacier is at is awesome. And you can also hike down to it, which we did not do on this trip, but like I would definitely do on a second trip. And one other thing that stood out to me, we talked about the lushness of Glacier, but another thing that stood out was just similar to Bryce, the diversity of plants was really amazing. So many different kinds of beautiful flowers. You've got these like streams that are coming down the hike that are really pretty, that you kind of walk over, and they've got really cool rock formations next to them, and just it kind of fires on all cylinders that you're looking for.
Yeah, flowers was a good thing to bring up because that was absolutely like, I feel like every grass field had some type of like little beautiful purple flower or pink flower just like scattered throughout, and it just is like picturesque. It's like out of a movie type shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like we were saying at that top of that Skyline hike, is it Skyline? Highline hike. The 360 view is like second to none because you're looking. If you look out towards the glacier, you have the glacier, and then you basically have like this stair climber stack of like lakes that are all just like pristine, you know, light blue with like at the bottom of this beautiful gorge, and then you just turn 180 and you're looking out at this just stunning valley carved up by a glacier, and it's just like whichever way you look, you're just gonna be mind blown. So
those are our park rankings. We got Redwoods going last to first. Redwoods, Zion, Yosemite, Yellowstone, Tetons, Bryce, and number 1, Glacier. Next, I think let's talk about our most stunning views of the trip. Do you want to bring that out? And this is something that's interesting because one of the major places we stopped at on this trip was Oregon, but we didn't go to any national parks in Oregon, which is why that was not brought up. Although Oregon as like a whole was probably, I mean, a top 1 or 2 thing on the whole trip.
Absolutely.
So why don't we talk about some of the most stunning views? Did we ever like?
We didn't fully rank these. We'll kind of just throw out some of our, absolute favorites. But I think to launch right off of Oregon, the Cannon Beach sunset was unbelievable, and especially if you want to talk about the elk.
Yeah.
We had this insane, as if you guys have been watching the videos, the vlog where the 2 elks, walk right by us and then walk in front of us, and this male elk, has his horns, like, not horns, what's the word? His rack just like touching the sun, it looked like, while the sun is setting, and you have the cannon, this like beautiful backdrop in it was just like,
yeah,
almost a religious experience.
That's what I was saying. I've been saying it felt like spiritual almost, because you had like these 2 beautiful, gigantic elk walk onto the beach right in front of the famous, I think it starts with an H. I can't remember the famous rock on Cannon Beach, but
yeah, Goonie Rock,
the Goonie Rock, as the sun is setting, and it just looks so beautiful. It was like probably the top moment for me on the entire trip was like experiencing that. You guys should definitely go back and watch that video, because that was so surreal. It felt like 2 otherworldly beings like coming and just going for a walk along the beach, like, and we were blessed enough to be in their presence for that time. It was amazing, and that is definitely one of the best. Like Cannon Beach itself too. Cannon Beach is just so vast from a scale standpoint. It's a huge beach. As you kind of are like stepping through the sand, it's got like the sand is like kind of squeaking underneath the pressure of your feet, which is a unique sensation. And when you look out, you're seeing this mist rolling off of the water over onto the beach. And so like you're walking through that mist, but you can only see other people off in the distance walking through it as well. And like that combined with like sunset, and just looks so pretty. Cannon Beach is a magical place, I think.
Absolutely, like magical through and through.
Yeah.
That might have been the highlight of the trip for me, is the elk. The elk that walked by.
Right.
Okay, so some other ones we have. We mentioned before the stargazing at Bryce was really, really breathtaking. Really pretty stuff. Well, I guess, what? Let's just start with, I guess we can kind of piggyback off of the elk and talk about the other, like, really cool animal experiences we had.
Okay, cool.
Which the other one would have been seeing the bison herd at Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Bison are just such stoic, beautiful animals, and you see them out in Yellowstone. They there's just hundreds of them as far as your eye can see, just kind of chilling in this beautiful, prairies and fields, and it was just a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. That was really cool. The bear, obviously, that we saw in Tetons, that's a great wildlife moment. I think if we're talking about most stunning views still, Tetons in the morning, and like also, so from our campsite, if you guys remember from those videos, you could kind of see the Tetons, but as you drive up to them, as we drove up to them in the morning that we hiked in and saw the bear, like, just the sunrise looked incredible on those mountains. And when we kind of pulled up to our hike, and we first started on our hike, there was this gorgeous fog rolling in over the top of the lake, and it just gave such an ethereal kind of vibe to the Tetons. Really, just I loved it. I don't know what else to say.
Absolutely.
That was like one of the most stunning things. And also like String Lake and Jenny Lake there too, like that as the foreground in front of the mountains too is just so incredible. It's one of the most beautiful places in the US for sure.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like that visual of waking up at camp in Curtis Canyon, I believe it was called, and like driving down towards the Tetons as the sun is setting or sun is rising, is just like seared into my brain of like, you know, you just can't look away. You're just like, holy hell, this is just picturesque.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
The Bryce Canyon spot where we watched the sunset during backcountry, I think also is like on that level of, for all the same reasons that we talked about liking Bryce Canyon, it was just the pinnacle of that. You're looking out far into like the valley out there, and you're seeing, you know, more canyon formations and stuff off in the distance, and then you look up close, and this was like one of the coolest things that we saw was this cliff that was right next to where we kind of sat while we watched this sunset, and I got multiple clips of it that are in the video. But it's this cliff that up on the top, it's all grassy and has like some trees up there, but then it's just this sheer drop off where you see the beautiful rock on the other side of the cliff. And what did you compare it to? Do you remember?
It just
Earth's crust. Remember how you
what
said that?
It looked like what?
You said it looks like you're peering into Earth's crust.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because like Jack was saying, the top was just, you know, pretty lush with grass and bush and trees, and then all of a sudden it's just this sheer drop off into the gorgeous, like, you know, weird rock formations we're talking about. And from the angle we were at, it kind of looked like one of those little like models you see as a kid in science class where you're like can see the Earth's crust. Like that's at least what it reminded me of. And
that's exactly what it looked like.
That was pretty awesome. And the sunset, that spot, the way it was like forming was like, you almost had these two humps of like pink, you know, sunset light, and they were like both like converging kind of in the middle, you know, right in the middle of like where your eyes are looking through this canyon. And it was just like,
it was so crazy. And I watched the video back, and like the video is beautiful, but it does not do it justice to, like, it'll never do a sunset justice, I feel like. But I feel like honorable mentions would be Blue Pool in Oregon. That was shockingly gorgeous, like the bluest natural water you've ever seen, just in the middle of the most lush forest. That was super cool. You guys should definitely watch that video. And Angel's Landing was pretty cool from up there. Lake Shoshone, where we did the backcountry camping in Yellowstone, was really cool, watching the sunset there.
Really pretty. Top of Half Dome was really cool. Really cool 360 view of just seeing, you know, these really cool, you know, granite mountains and stuff as far as your eye can see. That was really cool.
Do you feel like that kind of does it justice on the most stunning views portion?
I think so, yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so over the course of our trip, we camped in 16 different campsites. A couple of those were backcountry campsites. Some of those were dispersed camping, which means free camping. That is often like off on public land or in a national forest or something like that. And then we also did like traditional campsites that you probably think of when you're thinking of a campsite that has like a fire pit and maybe a bathroom there. We paid probably on average anywhere from $20 to $35 per campsite that was a paid campsite. The backcountry options were typically on the lower end of that, and there was kind of a mix of other campsites that were like the more traditional campsites that I'm referring to that were differently priced within there. So what we're gonna do is give you guys our top 5 campsites that we stayed at, and then we're gonna maybe give you 1 or 2 that we were not very satisfied with. So why don't we start with the 1 or 2 that we're not satisfied with? To just there's one standout that was like the worst campsite that we stayed at by far.
Yeah, and that one is there was a marina campsite in
just outside of Astoria, Oregon, northern Oregon. It was our first night in Oregon.
Yeah, first night in Oregon on the coast, and it was the most expensive of all the campsites, which again is something we'll kind of highlight later. But one thing that we definitely learned is the cheapest campsites are unequivocally the best campsites, and that's not just because I'm saving money. Like legitimately, they just are prettier and better.
Yeah. And the most expensive campsites are the shittiest ones.
Yeah.
Like
So
every time. Almost.
so this marina one we pulled in kind of late. They're unfortunately on the coast. There's not a ton of like dispersed or like free camping options, just because if you want to stay on the coast, you know, there's not a ton of like national forest there unless you would drive a little bit inland. So we kind of ended up at this one. It was basically like a parking lot at a marina, and it was
a good grass parking lot.
a little over $50 for one night, and basically you got the equivalent of like maybe 2 car spots, and that's basically your campsite. Luckily, we were in grass. Some people were not in grass. We got a grass spot, luckily. It just, you know, $51 for like, there wasn't any really amenities. Like there's no fires.
Was there even a bathroom? I don't remember a bathroom.
I don't remember a bathroom either. No, there wasn't actually, because I remember waking up that morning and having to really, you know, get after it real quick.
Oh yeah, to get to the gas station.
And we had to drive 10 minutes to a gas
gosh.
station. So you're paying $51 for
$51 for
really.
like a parking spot that fits like an RV, and it's right next. It's just like a strip of like a parking spot on grass.
Yeah, it's just parking
next
spot,
to
parking
other
spot.
parking spots, and
it was
like they know they can charge that much because there's not a lot of other options in the area. But it
like you could walk, you know, you could walk 5 minutes and then be right on the water. So that was cool, I guess. But the campsites were too far back from the water to where you really
can
like
really see the water.
For being on a marina, when you say like I'm like camping at a marina on the coast, you kind of assumed, oh, I'm gonna be right on the water.
Yeah.
But like
maybe
you were too far back in the parking lot to where you couldn't really see anything. Yeah. So it's kind of just like. And again, if this was a $20 site, then
it wouldn't have made
I think
the
that's
list.
fair. Like, it would be just another site. But to pay $50 for that, was pretty tough to stomach.
And then what was the other one?
The other honorable mention for, you know, kind of lackluster site. This wasn't on the same level, but it was a site we stayed at
outside of Napa.
Yeah,
in California.
Yeah, pretty much right between Napa and Sacramento, and it was also on the pricier end. It was, I think it came out to like $48 for one night, and it was better for sure than the marina because it had, you know, it did have a fire ring.
It was right on a lake too.
Yeah, right on a lake. It was pretty. Fire ring. Had a fire ring. Had a bathroom. Obviously, there's a fire ban, which, you know, you can't blame the parks for that. That's just, there's a lot of fire bans all across the country. But
I think it was just too densely packed in. So like the sites were very close to each other without much really separating them. Maybe like a bush, if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. But also it was very much like glamping style. So you could tell that like a lot of the people there's a lot of families, and they had probably just driven like 40 minutes and said we're gonna go camp for a night or like 2 nights. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you know, maybe
a lot of big generators running.
People are kind of partying there too, like. Which again, if it was a $20 site, not a problem at all. It was just too expensive.
I mean, I would even say if it was a $20 site, that it would be more towards the top of the list.
Yeah.
Not one of the best sites by any means, but.
Yeah. So we paid $48 for that one?
Yeah, we paid just shy of $50 for it. Yeah. So.
All right, let's move on to the top 5 campsites because that's what you guys probably care about. We have kind of like. We've got 2 honorable mentions. Should we start with that? Wait, is that St. Glacier?
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that as an honorable mention. Yeah. Okay, so we're actually going to give you 4 of our top campsites and then do 3 honorable mentions. Let's start with the honorable mentions.
So the first honorable mention we had is the campsite in Glacier National Park. I want to say it was Sun.
It was like Rising Sun Campground or something like that. It's like one of the first campgrounds that's on the east side of the park. And it was gorgeous. We saw really pretty sunrises and sunsets there. It was like a more traditional spot like I was talking about, where it's got like the fire pit and it had a picnic table for us. but we could also see the mountains peeking out from like the trees at the campsite, and had good amenities, and
Yeah,
it was just pretty and cool to be in the park like
sure.
that.
Then we had another honorable mention we had was Leavenworth National Forest. So this is in Washington, and this was just basically a pull off on the side of a road that was running through the national forest, and just kind of a big, dirtish gravel pull off. And there were a couple other people in there camping, and we kind of pulled in late and set our tents up, and ended up being a really cool spot. There was like a really beautiful natural stream kind of right beneath us where we camped. Really pretty views, above the road that we were looking at for sunrise and sunset. And it was free, which always makes things a little
Dispersed.
sweeter. So
That was a great spot. I think you kind of covered it. Really close to that really cool stream. Okay, the phone did overheat again, but the third honorable mention campsite was
it was in Telluride, Colorado. This is our second to last camp stop of the entire trip. Kind of a off the whim one where we kind of randomly decided to forego Arches, get out of the desert, go to Telluride. Got in late. One of my roommates here has been to Telluride a couple times, and she was nice enough to give us a couple recommendations. And the one we ended up staying at was called Lizard Head, I believe.
Yeah,
it was like
that's
near
right.
Lizard Head Pass, and ended up being like really sneakily beautiful. Like you're up there pretty high. You're kind of in this bowl of what almost we were saying feels like kind of like a mini slice of Glacier National Park.
Yeah,
Not to the same
because
level,
of the
obviously,
lushness of it,
Yeah.
in combination with the mountains.
And it was formed by a glacier too, so
Yeah.
I think there's probably some similarities there. But
Yeah.
yeah, really pretty, completely free, really easy to get in and get out, set up our stuff.
But in general, Telluride is really pretty. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah. But let's move on to number 4. So now we're moving on to our top 4 campsites in order.
And number 4, we had Shoshone Lake campsite, and this was within Yellowstone National Park. This was the backcountry campsite we had. You want to talk about it?
This one we hiked into, so there was kind of like a gratification. We did like kind of a longer hike for like having 50-pound backpacks on us. I think it was about 6 miles in to the campsite, and we did this. It was a really, really pretty hike, but like it was kind of a grind with our backpacks on. And so when we got there, we get in the water at the lake. We kind of set up our tents. We met some really wonderful people there. That's where the former firefighter woman helped me kind of, do a knot to tie our food up so that bears wouldn't get it. But this lake that we were on was just really, really pretty and pristine, and it was a no motor like lake. And yeah, I feel like that kind of gets to the heart of it. It was just really pretty. The water was really nice and cooled us down after that long hike, and we watched a great sunset out there and cooked a great meal out there.
Yeah, beautiful sunset. Like Jack was saying, kind of felt like you earned it with having really hike in a decent bit with the way we had on. We were pretty dead when we got there, and seeing that beautiful lake right by our site was really awesome. It's a really awesome spot.
All right, what do we have? I think this should get number 3, and I think that should get number 2.
Okay.
All right. So number 3, we have Redwoods campsite. So I don't know exactly the name of the campsite we were in. We could probably figure that out. Maybe I'll throw a thing on the screen. But it was just, we talked about the Redwoods earlier, and we kind of put it low because of the immersion factor on the park itself. But those trees are really, really gorgeous. And in this campsite, we barely got a spot here. There's like 1 or 2 spots left that day, and we really we did one loop, and then we were almost just going to drive out because it was so full. And then I was like, no, let's go back. And there was another loop, and then we ended up getting a campsite here, and it was so pretty. There's just these super tall trees that you're right in the middle of. You kind of look up, they're covering up a lot of the sky, but It's just very cozy feeling and very, I don't know, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think cozy is a good way to say it. Yeah, it's just there was something really cool and unique feeling about camping like under these incredible, really unique trees.
Yeah.
You really felt like you were just like, I mean, your campsite was kind of built around these
Yeah.
awesome giant trees. So, yeah, I think cozy is a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Actually,
good energy too.
Yeah.
Coming from those trees.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2. This one was, I was just loved this one immediately when we pulled in. This is our campsite right outside of Zion, and what was it called?
This was I don't actually remember the name. Maybe you would. I just kind of wrote down site. It was like a site just outside of Zion that was kind of immersed in these red rock formation.
Yeah, in this red rock formation. That was a few vlogs ago. I recommend watching that one, but just so vibey. I don't know how else to say it. We watched a super, super pretty sunset there. I wish we would have spent more time at this one. The only con was that it was super warm that night. That was one of the warmest nights that we slept, but the red rock formations were just giving off such good energy. It was so pretty and super tranquil. It was very, very quiet there too, and got me really excited to go into Zion the next day and just be in Utah in general. That one was awesome. Yeah.
And as we mentioned before, with the price thing, I think that one was maybe $25, which compared to some of the other ones was actually one of the cheaper paid sites. So it was kind of a shocker. Like, we just found it randomly online, pretty cheap, and then we pulled up. We're like, holy hell, this is really
awesome.
fucking cool. So that was kind of a surprise one that ended up being really, really awesome.
I want to go back to that specific spot again.
Yeah, that'd be a site that you could just stay at for a week, and it'd be a really cool spot for that to be at.
Great home base.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the top one.
Number one, and this is kind of in a league of its own. I don't even think 2, 3, and 4 hold a candle to it. But this was the Curtis campsites in just outside of the Grand Tetons.
The first place we stayed on the trip was the
campsite.
best place we stayed.
We set the bar up here, and we never were quite able to pass it for the next 28 days. But, was just given. It was a recommendation to go to by a lady about our age that was working at a
gear shop.
Yeah, gear supplier shop, and we're kind of just telling her about our trip, asking for recommendations. She lives in Jackson. And that was her number one that she told us to check out, and went through. You kind of have to drive up this really windy, pretty shitty gravel road, and like a lot of potholes and vibrations. But if your car can handle it, it is so worth it. Like we were saying earlier, just there's enough space in between all these dispersed campsites where you really don't see any of your other camping neighbors. I mean, there's like football fields that felt like in between, and so you have your own little camping circle. It did come with a fire ring, which is awesome too, and you have your own little camping circle, and you're just staring out at the fucking Grand Tetons.
Dispersed, completely free, awesome. The only con, I think, it was a little dusty, so when cars would drive by, it would kick up a bunch of dust, but that was outweighed pretty dramatically by the sheer beauty of it.
And we had we ended up sharing the campsite with a Canadian couple that was traveling with their van, and ended up being really lovely people. They gave us some great recommendations for Yellowstone. So, great company, great views, felt secluded, but had some amenities with the fire ring, totally free. It checked all the boxes. It was pretty unmatched for me.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is our recommendations, what we think would be the best if you're going to go on like a group trip. So some of these places were like amazing places, but we felt like may have lent themselves less to being like, maybe we want to take a group of 6 of us to these places. So now we're going to talk about what we think are the best in that category. Do you want to start that off? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't have any definitive rankings in my head, but the one that comes to my head right away would probably be Yellowstone. Because there's just, like we're saying, it's just so vast. There's so much to do. You could take a group of 6 there, and I mean, you could spend multiple weeks there and still never really bite off the whole thing. So,
like if you're gonna do a canoe thing with like a group of people, I think that'd be super fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, you could backcountry camp, you can go canoeing. I'm sure there's
you could take a boat out on some of those lakes.
Take a boat. The wildlife is awesome. Like, different sides of the park have different type of things to offer. Like, you would never run out of things to do, and I think that'd be awesome with a group.
Yeah, I also thought so. I think Bryce would be great for a group to do because there's a good mix of like, it's kind of a a la carte, like hiking wise. So it's got the beauty and everything like that, the really unique stuff, but also you can do a lot of shorter hikes if you want, day hikes, or do maybe some longer hikes that are connected to those day hikes. Although I don't know if you could do like, you couldn't spend as much time there as you could in Yellowstone, but that could be a cool one. Tetons, what we thought, if you're gonna go on like a longer group trip, if you're gonna go on a short group trip, I think Tetons would be awesome.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go on a longer group trip, maybe not as much, because I think it is a little bit less immersive, like we talked about, unless you want to do like a 19-mile loop or something like that. But if you want to like chill by the beautiful lakes that are there, I think, or go into town, into Jackson a little bit, maybe go see a rodeo, that would be really fun, I think.
Yeah. And the rodeo would probably play better at Glacier, actually.
Yeah, why don't you lead into that, because that's what I was going to go next.
Yeah, because Glacier would also be awesome, because we spend most of our time on the east side, and that's where you have all these stunning hikes. That'd be really fun to do, good camp spots. But then if you go to the west side, you have paddleboard rentals, canoe, zip lining, more of like the rec stuff, like recreation stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think you'd have plenty to do at Glacier for sure. And then, like Jack was saying, there's a rodeo that we toyed with the idea of going to. Unfortunately, we're just kind of on the wrong side of the park for it to be logistically make sense. But I guess they do a really cool rodeo in the summer, like every, I can't remember, Thursday or whatever the day it is. And I think that'd be an awesome thing to just pop on over to one of the days.
Yeah, I think Glacier would be high on the list of like group trip stuff. I also think Zion could be cool, especially if you stay at like that camping spot that we talked about. That was our number 2 camping spot on the trip. You use that as your home base and you kind of go into Zion. Like, we could have, you can do like Angel's Landing, but also, we could have done that, gone farther with that like water walk and stuff. And I think having like the one disadvantage that Bryce has for the group trip thing is that there's no water there. Sometimes of the year there might be, like in the spring when the snow is melting, but I think like having a body of water is like important for that. And so maybe Zion etches out Bryce for that reason. Another one that we didn't talk about, which I also think is maybe like in a top 3 category for group trip, is Yosemite, because Yosemite has a lot of different hiking and backcountry camping options as well. It's got cool waterfalls. It's got good like pools of water that you can get in and stuff. So Yosemite could be maybe right up there with Glacier. It might be one of the best. So maybe go Glacier, Yosemite, and Bryce for best
Yosemite
group trips.
I agree with Yosemite.
Unless you really want to get like, you want to feel really outdoorsy, if that makes any sense, then go like Yellowstone.
Yeah. And I think Yosemite, like we said, has a really vast array of hikes. And like when you're with a group, I'm sure you're going to have different levels of like who's trying to I'm going to do 18 miles today and really get after it. Not everyone's probably going to want to do that. So you have a good array of, like, you can really get after it and do like a half dome type hike and kill yourself for a day, or you can do the simple mile up, mile back hike to the waterfall that we saw that was stunning. Like it. So yeah, just like super accessible to all types of people.
Yeah, I think a diversity of experience is what makes something rank high for group trip, and also pretty campsite. So I think Yosemite, Yellowstone, Glacier, Bryce, Teton. Yeah, I don't know. You could have a good time anywhere, but
yeah, I almost feel like Yellowstone maybe would be one for me, just because, like I said, it's in a league of its own in terms of fastness and things to do.
Yeah,
and then after that, you can really make a pretty good argument. Yeah, maybe Yosemite's too, and then after that, you can make a pretty good argument for
any of them.
Glacier, Bryce, like
really,
you'll have a good time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we just talked about group trip recommendations. We're gonna do a quick coldest water that we got in section. So we have a little bit of conflicting opinions on this, but I think there's 3 that are like by far. I think there's 3 standouts for coldest water, and then 1 that is just blows every other cold water out of the park. And the 3 and 2 spot, I think that the third one, meaning the least cold out of these 3, is the one at Glacier National Park. Not the water that's by the glacier, because we did not get in that, and that could obviously maybe top the list even, although number 1 is going to be hard to top. But there was this lake. Did you ever find out the name of it?
At Glacier?
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't think it's McDonald Lake.
No.
I can't. It's on the east side. It's right by the Sun campsite we're at.
Yeah, right by like Rising Sun Campground on the east side of the park. That was some pretty cold water that we got in. Luke thinks that is colder than the number 2 spot, which it's my number 2, which is String Lake in Grand Tetons. String Lake in Grand Tetons was cold. It was so cold, like, so we spent a decent amount of time in that body of water, which I think amplified its coldness for me. But we swam out to this rock in the middle of the lake, which this is the most beautiful lake we got in by far, and that I've ever seen, I think. But we swam out to this rock. We do like backflip off the rock and stuff. And it, like, you get out of the rock and it's so cold. Like, it's not even like crazy windy, but it's windy enough to make you feel so cold. And we couldn't even swim all the way back to shore where we got in the water. We had to get out at a point that was not as far away to get out of the cold because it was so freezing. And then we were shivering on our walk back to where we set our stuff down.
It was cold. I still just feel like I remember hopping into the lake at Glacier and just being more like, holy fuck, I'm in pain right now. This is so cold.
I was more in pain, I think.
String Lake was really cold, but for some reason, I don't know. I think maybe I was just so amped up from it being the first body of water, or just how pretty it was, and I kind of just wasn't thinking as much about the coldness.
But neither of those hold a candle to number 1. Number 1, like, just is so knock your socks off. Like, when you jump in, you're going to be in shock, cold. And that's Blue Pool in Oregon.
Yeah. And
that was just... So that water is coming straight up, like, from the ground. And it just puts your body, like, into shock when you jump in at first.
Lose your breath right
You're
away.
Like,
it's almost like, I remember jumping in and wanting to, like, make a noise of discomfort, like, and I couldn't even get it out. So I was just kind of like... just like... I couldn't even get it. I couldn't even get like a grunt out.
And that's where I cliff jumped at too. And on that jump, I think the only thing that like really, I think the dangerous part about that jump is if you hit the water wrong, like you hit the water, it's hard enough to like knock the wind out of yourself or something. Then you also have the super cold water on top of that, and that's like kind of a dangerous combo.
For sure.
So
I think, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I want to say Blue Pool is like 35 or 36 degrees. So it's like,
Oh my gosh.
it is like just above freezing point. So it's
It's an ice bath.
about as cold as water can get
Yeah.
before it turns to ice. So yeah.
Yeah, it was it was super cool though, and I would totally go back and get in
Yeah.
again. But be prepared, man. That is
And I
it's
will
another
say,
level.
there's a certain level of like just pure refreshment you feel once
Yeah.
you get out, and then your body temp kind of gets up a little bit, and
Yeah.
you're not in so much discomfort. You do feel like incredibly refreshed.
Yeah. Okay. Also, quickly, we want to go over our gear a little bit too. So, we bought like stuff on Amazon before we went, and we were doing different research. We knew that we needed some sleeping bags and most importantly, we needed a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad that were going to be rated highly enough for the temperatures that we were going to. Our sleeping pad itself, which is the thing that we blow up to lay down on, was the most expensive item by far, because that actually plays into your warmth at night more so than the sleeping bag. Even we learned is that you want to get off the ground. That's really important. So between our tent, our sleeping bag, and our sleeping pad, and our pillows, our blow up pillows that we used, we spent $235 each on that set of gear. And to give you a frame of reference for how important that sleeping pad was, we spent $100 on that. So almost half of that full cost was on the sleeping pad.
Mm-hmm.
And that gear for our trip, I think, really, worked out pretty well. None of those items were particularly like bougie. Even our sleeping pad was Thermarest, which is like a well-known brand, like a high-quality brand, but it was like one of their more cheaper options. And we were kind of going for lightweight options, so each of us had a 2-person tent, and because we wanted to be able to do some backcountry camping. And I'd say that gear worked out pretty well. And outside of that, we bought a few other things. Like Luke got a hiking backpack, which proved to be really kind of a crucial purchase.
Super valuable for the 2 backcountry camping spots we did. I know, Jack can kind of talk about it, but he didn't exactly have a full size hiking backpack, and definitely had to kind of MacGyver some stuff that wasn't super probably enjoyable to walk with.
So I had a 35-liter Cotopaxi. I'm pretty sure it's 35-liter Cotopaxi backpack. Do you remember the liters on yours? Wasn't it like 60 or something?
Yeah, it was significantly more for sure.
So I had like this Cotopaxi backpack that the quality of the build of the backpack itself, I don't have anything negative to say about, but it was just not big enough for doing backcountry camping like we were doing. So I kind of had to hang my sleeping bag off of my backpack and my tent off my backpack. I did the second time, and like those things are kind of like banging into the back of my legs, or like when I bend over, the sleeping bag comes and hits me in the back of the head, and it just did not give me enough space that I needed. So if you're gonna do backcountry camping, you need a real hiking backpack that is like a big backpack. And another factor with that was that my backpack wasn't really made for, it was made for like a little bit lighter hiking, because specifically like the straps that go around my stomach that kind of make the bag rest on my hips were nowhere near like the quality, or like they weren't built for the same thing that his backpack was, even though I was like carrying maybe as much weight, maybe a little bit less on some of those. And that was like taxing. It was really taxing on my shoulders, especially when you're hiking in and out like 7 miles from like Yellowstone. So that's like the one piece of gear that I would change in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. I would also change our blow up pillow. I was like, by the end of the trip, I was super done. Like I was super ready to be over with that blow up pillow, even though it did a decent job for a long time. Like maybe a better pillow I think could have helped.
I think looking back, we absolutely should have just brought 2 pillows. And like the vast majority of the time we weren't backpacking to these sites, so we just could have kept 2 good regular pillows in our car, throw them in our tent, and then only had to use the blow up smaller, kind of shittier pillows 3 nights,
Yeah.
you know? And it would have been
Yeah.
pretty monumental
True.
for sleep, I think.
I mean, we were a little bit pressed for space.
We could have
but
made it work, though.
Probably could have made it work, especially if we didn't bring the golf clubs.
Yeah, there's some
in the
things
car.
there's some things we brought.
We brought some things we didn't need, including golf clubs.
In my defense, though, we started with a different vehicle.
Yeah,
and
we
so
had
we
more
started with the
space.
truck, and we packed
That's
everything
right.
up, and we're like, hey, we actually have some room here.
Yeah.
I'll just throw my clubs in, because what if there's a 5% chance that we go golfing?
Yeah.
Might as well. And then once we switched vehicles, it was definitely like, damn, I really wish I didn't have these taking up space right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good on that.
Yeah.
From a cooking standpoint, so we used propane burner. We bought the most like compact propane burner that we could off of Facebook Marketplace, and we also bought these 2 very small kind of like chairs that were like can pack into like something like that big. And I think those are both great purchases. With the chairs, we maybe could have gone a little bit bigger, but honestly, like I think that was the right decision on those chairs.
Yeah, I really had no qualms with those.
Yeah.
They worked perfect.
Yeah, and then for pans, the way we cooked, we used these like cheap pans from Goodwill the entire time, and those worked out really, really well. We actually had a different cooking set that we bought off of Amazon that had like a few like kind of like
More
pots,
like, more deep
and
pots
stuff, and like we didn't use that a single time. We just used these super simple pans, which I'll flash a picture or something, or you guys can look back at the videos. Like that worked great the entire time, and we were eating a lot of like canned food, a lot of beans, a lot of rice, a lot of like soups from time to time, a lot of sausage, and we would get like ground beef sometimes, and like different kinds of like seasoned chicken for like tacos. And that was basically what we lived off of when we weren't eating out the whole time, and that was fine.
Yeah, no, I thought it worked perfect.
Yeah. Anything else from a gear standpoint? We both had good hiking boots, which were crucial. I picked up like some hiking pants and borrowed some hiking pants from Brad that unzipped so they could like become like shorts, and I found that to be helpful some of the time.
Yeah, those look nice. Honestly, I wish I would have maybe...
Yeah.
When I bought the used hiking backpack, there was a pair of pants like that zipped off and was pretty lightweight, athletic material.
Yeah.
I think they were like $40. I ended up like being like, nah, I'll be fine. And I think that would have been well worth it.
Yeah.
I think those looked very nice to have.
Yeah, they were comfy. And another thing that I think would be really crucial that I had that he did not have is a microfiber towel. I think I like
Yeah.
you kind of got the short end of the stick, like with the regular. He had like a regular like terry cloth towel, and that just probably like stayed wet a lot more. And
Yeah,
stuff
it was
like
always
that.
damp and just kind of gets dirty and musty and...
But my microfiber towel worked perfectly like the whole time, and like it dries really quick. Like would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Another thing from a gear standpoint is the soap that we bought from the gear shop. You can buy like this really concentrated like camping soap that just suds up. Like you have to use, it's a small container. You only have to use a very small amount of it, and it really suds up well, and you can kind of wash yourself like that.
I believe it's biodegradable.
Yeah, but biodegradable as well. So is there anything else from a gear standpoint? Make sure you have headlamps.
No, I mean, the only qualm I had, like our tent, I thought our tents were great. The stakes that it came with were pretty shitty. They was kind of just like thin aluminum. So a lot of the ground we were at was not super soft. So, you can't just push it in. You had to kind of hammer it in. Granted, we probably should have been using like a rubber mallet. That would have been better instead of a metal hammer. But by the end of the trip, at least mine, I'm sure yours were too, a lot of them were fucking 90 degrees bent because you go to pound them in and they would just poop.
Yeah, they bend super easily.
Better stakes maybe would have helped, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, that, and then if I was like planning on camping a lot more frequently, and I wanted to make a better investment in a tent, I'd probably get a better tent because my they worked great for this trip, but on the last week of the trip, my tarp that goes over the top of my tent that protects it from water ripped pretty significantly. There was like that rip started fairly early, and it was because it was like staked into the ground, and the string that was attached to it kind of pulled the fabric and ripped off a seam. So, you know, we did not buy like the most premium supplies at all, but it worked for what we needed, and importantly, we also knew what temperatures we were going to be getting into some of these nights and prepared for that in advance, because we only had a handful of nights where it got really low, but we needed the sleeping bag and the sleeping pad that were rated for those temperatures. So that's my recommendation to you.
Yeah.
Anything we learned on the trip? We talked about earlier how the shittiest campsites are the most expensive and the cheapest are the best campsites. I think I learned about like needing the bigger backpack for one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some gear tweaks maybe we would make, like we said. I think like an overarching thing that we learned is just like always get recommendations from the locals and people that have done it. You know, you can get a decent idea of what the good stuff is online, but there's always little gems that you're not going to know unless you kind of just talk around and make friends. And that was kind of how we navigated our whole trip, honestly. It was just a string of recommendations from one local to the next as we went, and that ended up working out really, really well. So
yeah, that's a great way to do it. I don't know, we learned a decent amount about vehicles.
Yeah, it definitely had to be adaptable and flexible and just kind of figure shit out on the fly for a lot of the trip.
Yeah.
I feel like another key to just a good day that we had a lot was if you do some type of physically strenuous thing, like a big hike or something, you find yourself a nice pretty body of water with a view. You hop in it to cool off. You do the strenuous part, and then you just jump in the lake and you just chill there for a couple hours. And like, man, that's
a good day.
That's a key. It's a easy success for a great day.
Yeah,
we did it a lot.
It's a good recipe, and I think that also factors into like what makes a good group, trip and stuff. A trip in general, but a good group spot has like a combo of those two things.
Yeah. I think it also just like overarching stuff, I guess, was just like how fun it was to stay busy. Like,
oh yeah,
every day.
Talk about this.
You know,
speak up a little bit too.
Yeah, I'll sit up a little bit. Yeah, I feel like there was just never a dull moment. You're always busy. You're always making decisions and finding campsites, figuring out what you're gonna cook, what are you gonna do. And you're always just like planning and executing, for 28 days straight. And I think that's like super leads to like a really quality mental health, I guess. I don't know. Super fun.
Yeah. One common thing that we've been talking about a lot is like how when you're out like camping like that and stuff, almost every single task you do is going to have an impact on your quality of life. So like, picking a good campsite, making food for yourself in a timely fashion, like, bringing enough water, doing tasks for yourself. It leads to that directly impact your quality of life, leads to fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure.
And a sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is just because it's so prevalent out there in like the wilderness and stuff. It's easy to get lost in that, I feel like, in the day to day. But I think that lesson of, what do you think is that lesson?
I guess just like how, how it's easy to overlook like doing those little things that can have direct impacts on just your day-to-day life, not some overarching goal or whatever, but taking the time to go and buy nice ingredients and make a dinner for yourself and like reaping those rewards right away. I think, you know, you did a bunch over a lot of days and it adds up.
Yeah. It
You
adds
just
up.
feel more fulfilled, I guess.
It adds up over the course of multiple days and weeks, but like I think kind of one lesson that you could derive from that is that you want to rack up small wins.
Yeah.
So, you know, start your day off with like doing a few things for yourself, whether that is like making your bed or, you know, like eating a quality breakfast or, you know, getting up at a certain time. Those things they build momentum, and then you just keep stacking up wins. You know, do the things that are gonna, you know, benefit your future self, even if your future self is like an hour away or 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
You do that every day, you're gonna start racking up those small wins that turn into big wins. It turns into winning the day, turns into winning the week, honestly. And that's like gives you a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment and meaning too, a lot specifically when you're out there. Like, it feels meaningful when you hike into a spot 6 to 7 miles and it's hard, and then you do a good job setting up camp. You brought the right things to make yourself that meal. It's painful when you don't bring enough water or something like that, or you don't do those things.
Yeah.
And so like having those kind of painful moments, like us and maybe not having enough water for the Yellowstone hike in, or not having enough water or food for Half Dome, really just kind of shows you, like, it makes those things even more obvious how important they are. But also, when you do Half Dome on that little of stuff, it also feels kind of accomplished too, because you're like, damn, we did that shit.
yeah, in like a stupid way. It does feel like.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm weirdly like proud of myself for doing 18 miles on a empty stomach.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's just like the stupidity of it and learning, you know, not to ever do that again, be more prepared and that kind of stuff.
One thing I noticed that impacted my quality of life on the trip is just like how much less screen time there was, because we were staying busy, and then also lack of service. So like I had screen time because I was like editing the vlogs and stuff, but I kind of look at that differently than like scrolling on like TikTok or something.
For sure.
And we both kind of felt like once we got back into places of service, like we would get on TikTok and stuff, and it was just like you didn't feel good.
Yeah,
afterwards.
I feel like I would hop on Twitter for
felt
like
so brain rotty,
and then the first like 10 tweets and you're
which
just
is
like,
obvious,
oh
but
man, this just feels gross. Like, kind of forgot how just fucking stupid and much of a time suck this is. And so yeah, hopefully that's something that we can kind of maintain. Just kind of staying off those things or limit them for sure, because it felt nice to be off them.
Yeah, it did. Huh. But I'll always respond to your guys' comments. Any other like takeaways like that? Build the small wins throughout the day. Roll with the punches.
They roll with the punches.
Be adaptable, and you know, do things that build on those pieces of fulfillment, those little things that contribute to your quality of life. Make those daily habits, I guess. And
yeah, I mean, we kind of covered it too a little bit with like we kind of were just constantly asking locals and random people for recs and advice. But I think, I don't know, I was like, it was pretty cool to see like how willing and almost excited almost everyone that we interacted with was to like give you the good spots and tell you about the best things to do and just like talk about your trips. And like I feel like if people are like mostly pretty warm and inviting and pretty eager to like help you out and those type of things. So yeah, don't be afraid to like talk to people.
On that note, we have a list of people that we want to thank from the trip, people that had an impact on our trip throughout the whole time, and we met like probably 100+ people over the course of the entire trip, from all the gas station clerks to the park rangers and stuff like that. But we have a little short list here of people that we want to thank for taking part in our journey and helping us at every step of the way. And I'm just going to start off with thanking my mom, actually, because at the beginning of the trip, she helped us by taking us to the grocery store, helped get us some of those pans,
which was huge,
and really set the tone for like how we were going to grocery shop and stuff for the food the rest of the time. So thank you, Mom, for that one.
Yeah, Sherry really set us up for success.
Yeah.
And made just the launching point of the trip so much easier.
Yep.
And yeah, shout out Sherry.
Yeah. All right, why don't you start going down the list, and then maybe I'll hop on some.
Yeah. Hopefully we're not leaving anyone out here, but just to kind of start with the hosts and the people that kind of hosted us. Trudy and Dylan and Ben were the best. Layton and Esperanza, and then their
Speak up a little bit.
Layton and Esperanza and their kids George and Noah and Fresno were lovely and couldn't have been better hosts.
Thank you guys.
Then in Bozeman, our boy Noah and his buddies Vincent, John, Whit, Matt, Elliot. Yeah, we're just a great time.
Yeah,
had a
you guys are a
blast in
great
Bozeman
time.
with the whole crew. So I'm super grateful for that.
Okay, we have the Tyrama guy in Bozeman, who is really helpful with
Just
like
giving-
when we were going from the truck to the Land Rover. He was
Yeah.
really helpful, gave good advice. The Canadian couple that we met outside of the Tetons at our campground. Outdoor Gear Girl in Jackson, who gave us the suggestion to go to Curtis Campground. Jacob, the guy that we met outside of Bryce Canyon, you're sick. Wish you the best. Yellowstone backcountry camping crew. So that includes the firewoman that helped me tie the knot, and all of their friends. You guys were great.
At Half Dome, there was a guy named Neil and his friend, who I feel bad that we can't remember the name of, but we kind of ended up just naturally going up as a foursome, and that was super fun to kind of just all, I think everyone was a little bit sketched out, so having a group of four just kind of all supporting each other was really cool. There was a mom and a daughter at Half Dome that were, super fun interacting with, kind of giving us some advice on hikes and that kind of stuff.
There's the blonde lady at Half Dome who gave us her permit. I think her name was maybe like Ashley or something. But she gave us her permit as we were heading back down of Half Dome in case we got caught. She was really sweet. Oh, Kara and Kendra Benz from Solana Bakery. Thank you guys so much. That was an amazing stop. Loved that, guys.
There was an Oregon gas clerk in Oregon, obviously, that just gave me 2 free beers. Super nice, told him I was from Colorado visiting, and he was like, well, here's the welcome to the state of Oregon, and gave me 2 free beers. So super nice guy there.
There was 2 women who was working working in the campsite near Napa, and you guys are really sweet. One of them had just moved from Maryland after not knowing anybody in California. She just drove out there, so you're a trooper for that.
There was a coffee shop worker at actually the first pit stop we made, and I want to say Laramie.
Maybe? Yeah.
I want to say Laramie, definitely Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Feel good about Laramie. And she was super sweet. Was just kind of, we were telling her about our whole plan for the trip, and she recommended, when we told her that our first stop was the Tetons, that we try this Thai spot in Jackson, which we actually ended up doing.
Yeah,
and it ended
which
up
is
being
great.
really good. So great rec.
Backcountry park ranger in Yellowstone. You were a very straightforward, straight shooter kind of person, but she kind of warmed up to us a little bit and gave us great advice. So thank you very much.
Yeah. At one of our campsites in Oregon, there's a Portland native that we're kind of had neighboring campsites with, and when he left the day before we did, he gave us like 4, unused bundles of firewood for next to nothing, like I think $5-10, and then also gave us some recommendations in Oregon. So super nice guy, great conversation with him.
What is that?
And then we have the guy in Washington who showed us the truck.
Yeah, we met a guy in Washington who had a huge trailer with a bunch of hay on it attached to his truck, and inside the bed of the truck, it's just like the trailer hitch sits inside of the bed of the truck. And I was curious about how that worked, and then he gave us the whole spiel on it. He was he was a really nice guy. And then also I want to thank Brad for letting me borrow your pants and some other gear. Appreciate that a lot. Aaliyah, thank you for letting us borrow your binoculars. Those are fucking sick.
Those were huge. Those were fucking awesome.
Those are awesome. Sheriff.
Yeah, my roommate Sheriff gave us some really good recommendations.
And the containers.
And containers that we used that were essential. Yeah. I guess my hiking boots were from my dad, so shout out to him. Yeah, man. We're probably, forgetting some other small people that we met, but
we're probably leaving some people out. But thank you to everybody that we met along this journey, that helped us out along this journey, who's watching this journey right now. It's just kind of fun having you guys along here with us, and we hope you got something out of maybe our spiel here about the recommendations and stuff like that. And leave comments with any questions you have. And I think that's about it.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.